Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are live, super excited. So just want to get some business out of the way and let you know, as you just heard, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. We're always blessed to have you here with us. Today, we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is available on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Please be sure and join us in one of the various chat rooms that you will find all over social media. So whether you're viewing us on Rumble or YouTube or Facebook, even LinkedIn, we're streaming, of course, X, and of course on the network. So we love to hear from you. So pop in to the chat. So I'm pretty excited about our guest today and about our topic. For decades, we've been told that to solve our deepest emotional pain, our anxiety, of course, that's Oliver barking. You're going to have to get used to that. So to solve our emotional pain, as well as our anxiety, our triggers, which we all seem to have them, as well as our trauma, whether it's childhood trauma, doesn't matter. They say we need to talk it out. So we sit in a chair, we unpack our stories, and we hope and pray that the weight lifts. But what if the healing isn't just in your head? What if it's trapped in our bodies too? Which I firmly believe. And that's why I'm super excited to bring this topic to you, because I think we're all suffering. I don't like to use that word suffering. So let's say experiencing this type of trauma. So our guest today, her name is Maria Toso. She has written a book that I read and I absolutely loved, made a bunch of notes as I was reading it, that challenges the very foundation of our modern mental wellness. Her book is titled Heal What Hurts, the Somatic Process of Getting Results when therapy fails. And of course, we'll have the link to where you can purchase that in the description on YouTube, as well as all the social media. And you'll see it running across the screen in the ticker on her website as well. Maria Toso is a veteran therapeutic yoga teacher and the creator of a powerful 8-step Heal What Hurts somatic method. She's here today to explain why those old, painful, emotional knots, Lord knows we all carry them, they're not just abstract concepts, but real physical blockages, and how a simple body-based practice can finally free us from this trauma response that years of talking couldn't touch. So let's welcome Maria on board. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Carol Ann. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. So you'll see me say hello to some folks as they pop in. So you can just ignore me as I wave to them. Like now we have Allison. Always a joy seeing you. And Carrie, always a joy hearing from you. You have some of the most awesome commentary. We love hearing from you. So grab your friends. Come on in. We have a great topic today. So tell us, Maria, you're obviously a yoga pro. You've been a master, I guess. You've been involved in that for decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was going to ask you how you got started. Give us some of your background. I'll step away and you can kind of talk about yourself for a minute or two.
Right. So I was born and raised in Copenhagen, Denmark. And when I was 17 years old, I became an exchange student in the States. And during that time, when I was out of the country, my father died. So I came back to a completely changed situation. And I didn't really have any tools, especially to deal with the fact that I would feel him. I would dream about him. I would have visions of him. And it was like he was still there in some way. But there wasn't any frame of reference for that in my family. My family was not particularly religious or spiritual. So, just around a year after that, I was introduced to Tibetan Buddhism in Germany, where I was visiting a friend. And for the first time, I learned to meditate. And that brought such a clarity around how those that have departed the physical world are still available in spirit. So that was really this opening into my spiritual path. Now, as part of that, when I came back to Copenhagen, I started meditating more regularly. So I would go to the lectures. And one of the teachers, quite early on, I think at this time I'm maybe 19 years old, he explained to me that every human being is eternal, infinite light embodied in a physical body. And that we experience the world depending on what we carry in our mind. And now mind is a little different from how we think of it maybe in the West, as the mind are all the thoughts. They think of it more as the heart mind, the mind body, which is the whole mind expressed in the physical body and then projected out and becoming what we experience. So in other words, if we have old hurts and wounds and experiences that are unresolved, something that made us contract at some point and never got released again, then that sits like a speck that light has to shine through. And not only does it sit there like a knot, it actually attracts that very same type of experience. And that can be hard to recognize at first, that an experience I had at a very young age, at 4 or 5 years old, of being hospitalized and feeling abandoned and all alone in the world, that was repeated when I moved to the United States from Europe, all alone in the world. And then my then husband would leave town for weeks at a time. And all of a sudden, I would act like a 5-year-old who had been abandoned in a hospital. And it felt completely
Oh, wow.
in some ways. Um, and I didn't know yet. I wasn't really putting it together in my 20s quite yet, that I was recreating a trauma. So it would be quite a few years beyond that I started seeing, wow, that feeling of being abandoned, being all alone, and not being safe and not feeling like I belong, that's on repeat. If the circumstances out there are right, then that program, that pattern, that samskara, that knot kicks up. And then what I did, which is what I now have seen so many of my clients do, I would either lash out, try to change the other person, make someone else, well, you just need to call me X amount of times a day. You need to say these things. You need to do these things so I don't have to feel this. So we've all done that, lashing out, trying to create,
Yes.
an environment that we feel better in, or numb out. We all do that too, right? Alcohol, sugar, weed, porn, scrolling. Scrolling is big now.
Yeah.
And then the third out that I talk about in the book is checking out. And that's where we kind of cut ourselves off from feeling our own feelings. So we get very heady and rational, but we don't own what's actually happening emotionally in the body. And to say it in a very short, condensed way, the process of the book is to observe all those out, slowly quit doing that, and coming in instead, being fully lovingly present with the energy that can feel very physical and also become very physical, that has contracted somewhere in the body. And that could be in the
Mm.
heart, in the throat, in the belly, in the solar plexus, in the stomach. And learning that when that signal fires up inside, that would normally kick in the outs, I gotta go. I'm gonna sit. I need to go inside myself and be with that place within myself. What happens if I don't do that? I'm going to play out a story. Well, my ex-husband, and we're actually good friends now, so he won't mind me saying this, but he's just being a jerk. He's not calling me. I moved all the way from in another part of the world, and clearly he's being a bad husband. And like you said in the introduction, I could go to a therapist and potentially have a therapist or a girlfriend agree with me that this marriage isn't really working out because he's not meeting my needs. But
Yeah.
then I circumvent the process of figuring out, well, where's that story coming from? And my body will tell me that story if I'm willing to be with my body when it is that triggered. And that's really where it's at, the willingness to be with ourselves when we don't feel loved, we don't feel safe, and we don't feel like we belong. Because that is at the root of every trigger I've ever worked with in myself or helped clients, students, whether in group settings or in individual sessions, work with the feeling of not feeling loved, safe, and like you belong.
Hi, Evasaur. Always good to see you. So you said a lot there, and I want to unpack some of that.
Mhm,
So, how do we know? Because I think a lot of us think that we've healed from traumas,
mhm,
and we really haven't.
mhm,
I mean, even if we tell ourselves that, yeah, I'm pretty much at peace with, whatever it was, how
mhm.
do we know? Like, is there a thing we could do to test that theory?
Well, you will know where you're really at by what you attract into your life. So if you are attracted to, and this is a very common thing that I see, so I'm going to use that as an example. If you're attracted to the unavailable man that doesn't meet your needs for communication, for example, that attraction falls away when you're truly healed. Like you just won't find that energy attractive anymore. It's
Ah,
attractive because it's an energetic match to something that happened to you that is unresolved. So it becomes, so say you were little and you were in some way not cared for, some part of you contracted, and then you may have healed and relaxed it a little bit. You could say that the charge of the trigger is like at an 80, and then you heal it enough that now it's softened to a 60. Well, 60 might still be enough that you think that person is kind
mhm.
of interesting, and
Yeah.
then before you know it, you're locked in with that person again. And we know that locked in kind of obsessive feeling, that's a sign that we haven't healed that trigger that draws that particular experience in. And that's not something to be ashamed of or even be disappointed in. See that as an opportunity to, wow, I get to love that part of myself yet again.
Mm.
Just like you wouldn't be impatient with a little child that fell on their bike again. You would pick them up yet again and say, "It's okay, honey. I've got you. You're almost there. I'm gonna hold you." You
So when
wouldn't
you're
say, go ahead.
no, so when you're healed, then you stop attracting the things that hurt you essentially, right?
Yes.
Or cause triggers, right?
Yes. That's really how I experience it and notice it and speak about it, is that whatever was the early programming, the experiences that were embedded in the energy field of the body, they're on repeat until those frozen places have melted in an environment of enough loving presence. And that's the beauty of this work, because the only way to heal, what we want when we lash out or numb out or check out, what we
Mm,
always would rather have is love. It's a
gosh, that's
substitute
so
for
true.
love. So
Yeah.
when we learn to love, and what is love?
Mm.
It's a word that we use a lot. You could say, "Well, I love myself so much, I'm gonna eat some ice cream." No, love is deep presence. When someone loves us, they show it to us by saying, "I'm gonna give you my undivided attention, my
Oh,
presence
yes.
right here, you, me. I see you. I want to know you. I want to hear you. I even want to feel what you're feeling." So that is the willingness toward ourselves to say, "I am here. I love you. I've got you. Tell me about it. What's going on? Where is
Mm.
it?" But the tell me about it is not so much. I mean, we got to touch a little bit on what's happening when we process something, but for the most part, it really isn't about what is the story. It's, where do you feel it in the body? And toward the end of the book, I think one of the last chapters is called A New Paradigm for Friendship, where say you call me about the jerk that didn't text you, and instead of me jumping in and commiserating with you and agreeing with you that he's so terrible, instead I'll say, "Carol Ann, where do you feel that in your body?"
Mm.
"Oh, I feel a knot in my stomach." Oh, I can almost feel that as I sit here with you. I'm just going to be with you as we feel that. Are you willing to just be with that feeling? So it's just the body. And
Mm.
then we can stir up, like, now I want to tell you something else he did. Where did you feel that in your body? Oh, it's like really hurting my heart. And then the magic kind of starts when, after we've gotten more willing to be with the body, we're able to stay with the contraction enough that the pattern starts to reveal itself. And
Mm.
this is what I'm experiencing in private sessions. And when I continuously do this work with myself, is, wow, what does this remind you of? What's really hidden here? What's contracted and locked in here? I remember when I was 9. I remember something my
Wow.
mom said, and that comes up, and that whatever happened at 9, 5, 2, 7, in these
Yeah.
really young years, it's almost eerie how, how we can replicate that experience 50, 60 years later.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
It's so interesting. Eversor made a comment that I wanted you to touch upon. Mm, you stop crying when you think about it. So, uh, just a quick personal note for me. Like, I experienced the death of my husband about 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years thank you, in November, and we were married for decades, decades, right? So, it took a very. I went to grief counseling, of course, and
Mhm,
I thought that too. That when you can get up one day and you're just not sobbing,
mhm,
that you're on your way to healing.
mhm,
I personally didn't find that to be true.
mhm,
I just I think I came to the realization that I have to move on with my life and
mhm.
crying isn't going to help me in any way. So I kind of made a conscious decision to stop crying. But do you think that's true? Do you think that when a person stops crying about a trauma that that means they're on their way to healing or healed?
I can understand that comment, but I could also flip it on its head and say, you're healing when you finally do cry,
Ah,
because someone else might be so frozen and so caught off, maybe have numbed out a certain experience for
yes.
so long that what is needed is the release. I will say, in my experience, there's sort of different ways of crying. There's the crying that comes from the story of feeling victimized, and then really running that story in a
Mhm.
in a way that really has no end, and that's
Yeah,
incredibly draining. When you cry from that place, you are so drained after you've cried. It's like you've kind of almost been in the grips of a story.
yeah.
But when instead you don't do any story, and I still have to do this with myself when I sit with something that's going on, I can feel myself wanting to accuse someone, point
Mm,
fingers, about something that someone did.
yeah,
And it's not like there aren't people out there that do unkind things, but I leave that, and I have this little mantra, just the body, just the body. Yeah, this is what it is. And I just go in and I feel it to the oomph degree, and I speak to it. I love you and I'm here. It's okay. I've got you. And I
yes.
really stay with the feeling. And the more you do this work, the more detailed that experience becomes. When I first start working with people, they can be pretty numb because we learn early on to not show emotion. What do we give a little kid when they're hurt? Here, have a lollipop, have some ice cream.
Right.
We really just teach them really early on to numb
Yes.
out with sugar, or come watch a cartoon and have some ice cream. That doesn't even seem like a bad thing to do. But if you think about it, what if that kid had gotten to sit in your lap and said, I want to hear what just happened. Did you get really scared when the bike flipped over, was it the elbow that hurt? Let me hold that. Let's both hold that, and I'll kiss your boob, or sit with it. Then that fear that just jolted through the body when the kid got thrown off their
Yeah,
bike
yeah,
gets to move through emotion, energy, and motion that moves through. But if it doesn't, if it's like the fear, and then, oh, stop crying, come sit here, here is an ice cream, then it's like frozen emotion.
yeah.
And we do it in a well-meaning way. I mean,
Yeah.
if you watch an old Western or even a modern movie, the hero
Mhm.
sits at the bar, pour me another one, right? Had a hard day, so now we need something to take the edge off because we
Mm.
don't know how to go in and feel it inside the body. We tend to treat the body as something that has to look perfect for me to be loved.
Yeah.
Well, what
Yeah,
if
I was gonna say the worst I
Mhm,
think too is when you hold on to that for decades and you just
mhm,
hold that rage, that anger, that hurt, and
yeah.
it destroys your life,
Well,
and it can
it makes you
destroy.
sick. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
I think whenever
yeah.
some energetic area of the body contracts, then in yoga we talk about prana, life force. In Chinese medicine, qi. We could talk about, the Holy Spirit, the energy of spirit, breath moving through the body. Well, someplace when there's a contraction, the prana, the energy, the life force can't get to that. It becomes this dense kind of cut off place,
Mm.
and that can make you sick. In Ayurvedic medicine, which is you could say the sister science to yoga, it is stated that all disease starts with tension,
Gosh, I think
something
that's
that's
so
tensed
true.
up. And then at some point it can manifest as something that needs surgery or needs like serious
Yeah,
intervention.
yeah.
But if we could learn the practices of softening of the places that are contracted and get better and better earlier and earlier at catching, wow, this just happened. I felt this in my stomach.
Mhm.
I'm going to sit with that and help move that through. Like, what if we taught our kids that in school before we even start our school day? Let's clear out
Right.
whatever sits there, which could be something as simple as having been snubbed in the hallway and it sits
Sure,
like
for a
it's sitting.
child,
Yeah,
yeah, that's traumatic, and I think Allison kinda nailed it here. She said, "So true and so frustrating when you're in the middle of it, but you don't understand the process."
right.
So and that's what I love about your book because it really does walk you through that process.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. And for some reason this comes to mind now too, because I think this is so common that when we start to recognize, okay, this is my deal. I'm triggered and I'm lashing out, numbing out, and checking out. There can be a
Yeah,
lot of shame around that
yeah.
because who wants to act like a child in an adult body? Nobody. It's embarrassing. And after it's happened, we kind of want to, not talk about it necessarily.
Mhm.
But I have had people in very educated positions, all ages. It's a human thing to carry triggers in the energy field of the
Oh,
body,
gosh, yeah.
and
Gosh,
there
yeah.
is not anyone who's exempt from it. Um, and yes, we don't know what to do with it because we don't have even some of the healing methodologies that I encountered before I had to come up with this on my own, write my own book. There was a lot of recognition that we have to become present. We have to feel it in the body. We have to challenge the stories that we make up and see that, they're not valid. But the missing piece for me, and when things really shifted, and this is not going to resonate for everyone, but it really was when I called on the divine to help me. Like when
Mm,
and the divine is, you could say, my higher self, God, the divine eternal force within the universe. I mean, you can have your way
yeah,
of phrasing that, but when you're so contracted and in pain, you are like a little cut off child. But the
yes.
moment you call upon the divine and say, Divine, God, please fill me, please help me open up. Please bring your loving light to this place that hurts so much. I can't do this alone. So there is
Mm,
that surrender, kind of like the 12-step process where there's also,
yeah.
I'm not super well versed in that, but there is that surrender to a higher power to help with something when we feel so small.
Oh, I love that, and
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
in the book, you've noticed there's
yeah,
for every chapter, there's a
yeah.
prayer, you know?
Mhm. I love that too, and I made sure to, like, jot some of them down to say to myself daily because they were just short and perfectly said, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Allison. Dis-ease causes disease. Yeah,
Yeah,
it really does.
right.
So, after your dad passed away, were you a spiritual person before that? Or did that really, like, bring you into your own spirituality?
I was a very spiritual little kid. I was kind of clairvoyant and I used it in mischievous ways. So my dad would travel on business to Germany and I lived in Denmark, and candy in Germany was cheaper and you got larger quantities. So he would bring back candy from Germany and then he would hide it, and he had a shop in the basement and he would hide it cleverly in the basement so we couldn't find it. Only I would go down and stand when no one else was around. I would go down and stand in the center of his shop, and I would never look for it. I would just stand and become kind of loose in my body, is how I would say it. I
Oh,
become
wow.
loose in my body, and then suddenly my body would climb up and reach in, and it wasn't like I would search on the third and the fourth shelf. I would go straight to the fifth shelf, and I wouldn't reach to the right.
Wow.
I would reach to the left. I would just boom, there it was. And then I would steal candy basically. So
Cute.
and I the same would happen also in school, where if I hadn't studied properly, and the way they would do it in Denmark, would they would kind of pounce on you and say, so when was Denmark at war with Germany before this First World War? And you had to know that year. And
Mhm.
I wouldn't. And then I would hear a song, a kid's song, Malrock died in the war in 1964, Malrock died. And then I would
Yeah,
just blurt out 1964. And I felt like I was cheating, because then I thought I was a good student who knew these numbers that we had
yeah,
to
yeah.
memorize. And I was horrible at memorizing things like that. But I would just have this other kind of help come in. And because there was no frame of reference for that, it always felt a little bit like I was just kind of, I don't know, cheating by using these methods. So that was with me up until I went to high school. The first couple of years of high school, I got into drinking alcohol and
Oh,
partying. That shut it all down.
yeah, it would.
And then when I got into Buddhism and started meditating, it was like being a child again. Suddenly I felt things, I knew things, I could hear and feel the guidance of spirit guides. And there was this feeling like, wow, I kind of got my old powers back. And I had never made the connection that they had left me because of alcohol. So I chose at a really young age, when it was not fashionable at all. Now there's a little more awareness around alcohol
Mm,
in my country, but back
yeah.
then you were really odd if you didn't drink in high school.
Oh,
Like
wow.
really odd. Like the teachers would serve us alcohol at parties. That's how
What?
common alcohol was. So I quit, and then it all kind of came back. The more I meditated, the more would come back. The less I meditated, the less it would come back. So yeah, and then that became my path, which was like very different. And I wouldn't say that I'm a Buddhist now. I'm just as much a Christian, because I've always loved Christ and Mother
Mm,
Mary in my life. So I kind of embrace all the loving goodness of
yeah,
the spiritual lineages that I kind of had around me. But the common to all of them is, be still and know that I am. Be present. Come
mm,
in, feel the body. One of the first practices I learned in the meditation center was a practice of imagining a illuminated Buddha above me, sending a nectar of light down through my body.
mhm.
And through that, I would have to feel every part of my body and imagine my whole body being illuminated. And then whatever you would encounter would be where the light really had to work. So that was essentially what I do now, with a slightly different understanding of it.
Yeah,
But the body scanning is and you've seen that in the book as well. Like, that's fundamental. Scan your body, feel your body, scan your body, feel your body. Notice what part of your body you're like, ooh, I don't want to feel that.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
could be on the physical level too. We can be so mean to ourselves if there's some part of our body that we don't love and that we think should look different, so that we would get more love and feel more safe in the world, which is
yeah.
kind of where that comes from. But those places need the love even more. My daughter said to me recently, she's 25. She said, it's really just about really loving yourself, right? It's like, right.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's one of the most difficult things to do. So I think there's three kind of people. Like there's the person that would never go to therapy for
Mhm,
mental help. They just would never consider it. It's an
mhm,
absolute no-no. And
mhm,
then you've got people that will go, they're kind of hesitant about it, but they get nudged and pushed by friends and family and they kind of go unwillingly. And they go through the motions. And then you've got people that love to go and they'll
mhm,
go for years and years and years.
mhm,
But in all three of those cases, I think sometimes healing just doesn't come like from
mhm,
talk
mhm,
therapy. It just, and
mhm.
then they want to push, antipsychotics on you or antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs. That's like the first thing when
Yeah,
I went to see my doctor after my husband passed. He wrote me 2 prescriptions, one for an antidepressant and one for an anti-anxiety. And that was his solution. "Oh, you're
yeah,
a mess. You
yeah.
you gotta take these." And I took the well, they call it in. They don't give you physical prescriptions anymore, but so
Mhm,
he called it in and I went back to see him 6 or 8 weeks later because he was so worried about me and wanted to see how the medication was working.
uh-huh,
And he said, "So how's the medicine working?" And I said, "I wouldn't know because I never filled it." And he said to me with his arms crossed, "What am I gonna do with you, Carol Ann?"
right.
And I said, "I just don't I
Yeah,
wanna feel the pain and I
yeah,
wanna work through it myself."
mhm,
The point being,
yeah,
that's the sad solution,
yeah.
right?
Yes, and I don't want to say that there isn't a time and a place when we don't have the tools and the support
Mhm.
to do that deep somatic work where medications like that really could help us through a rough spot. I've seen that in people. I've never
Oh,
tried it
yeah.
myself. Like you, I was once prescribed something like that when I was going through my divorce. And the night before, I sat in meditation and had done some yoga, and I had tears streaming down my face. And I just knew, like I knew, these tears are supposed to flow. Don't do anything to stop them. That's part
Right.
of what he's done. So, like you, I never filled the prescription, but I don't feel like I'm a hero because I didn't, and that someone else failed because they did fill the prescription. But like you, I would say talking about it, at least alone, doesn't work. We have to involve the body.
Hello, Heidi.
Hello,
So good to
Heidi.
see you. Always say she's from Boulder, Colorado. Yeah, I don't I one of my closest friends takes anti depression medication because her mom passed away and she went through it in a very bad way. But she set a goal for herself to stop like in 6 months. So
Yeah,
and I think that's brilliant to do.
yeah.
So rather than saying, "Well, I'm going to take this for the rest of my life," you
Mhm,
know, she set a goal. And
mhm.
you're right. There's no winner or loser in that situation. You have to do what works best for you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right. But and I would say my book and my process and my coaching and group classes that I do with very small groups of people, like no more than 10 people. So it's really intimate. Um, that is not necessarily the only thing you need to do, although I think it can be incredibly healing, but have it be a complementary practice to, potentially doing talk therapy or medications. Like I'm not a
Mhm.
doctor, so I'm not going to overstep
Right.
in any way, shape, or form, but I hear it again and again from my clients. Wow, I have, what hasn't not budged in years of therapy in a few sessions of actually bringing the powerful energy of loving presence to this pain and allowing it to move through. Like everything is energy. The whole body looks so solid. It's energy, and the places, just like in like acupuncture, that where something is stagnant or blocked, we
Mhm.
want to help that flow through again. And you might say our own loving awareness is kind of like the needle in acupuncture that helps it flow. Although, the love is more pleasant. But like someone said earlier in the little text that went across the screen there, yes, but it's so hard because we don't know what to do with it when we're in it.
Right.
And if we don't know there is something here I can do, then of course you're going to reach for your wine or your ice cream or whatever it is. We've all done it a million times, right? So it's really about spreading the word of a different way that is love. When you feel the knot in the stomach or the tension across the chest, like hands to it. I love you. I'm here. I've got you. And the whole body, just those words, even now as I'm sitting here, I can feel like there's a little softening
Mm,
that happens, that we
yeah.
need those words so much. When I was a kid, my mom had this Mother Mary porcelain figurine that her grandmother had given her. And I just loved it. I still have it here in my home. And it's that loving holding that we very intuitively, empathically, compassionately do with a small, defenseless child. It's
Mm,
that energy toward that place inside of ourselves. And then the the memories might start to surface. And you asked earlier how, or one of your guests did, like, how do you know you've healed? Or
mhm,
and to me, it's no longer a goal that I be quote unquote healed. It used to be a goal. Like
mm,
in my 20s, I thought, okay, I'm going to do all these practices, then I'll
yeah,
be, home, scot free, and I'll live my real life where I'll be successful and find the perfect man and the perfect house and all the things. I think it's a lifestyle to be so
yeah.
lovingly compassionate toward myself that no matter what comes up, I have an awesome friend by my side, and it's me and my relationship with the divine.
Oh, I
And
love that.
I'm willing to meet anything that comes down the pike. So I'm not so afraid anymore too of, the rug is going to get pulled out from under me, because that's life. The rug will be pulled out from under you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
It's a given. People die,
absolutely.
things happen, pandemics
Yeah,
occur, elections,
if you're on
whatever
this
it is.
planet.
Mhm. Right. So, but if you can have a practice that helps you come inside yourself to those places that are contracted, and it's like the inside, this is how I experience it when I meditate or pray, is like a cup. And it's a cup that can be filled with divine light, higher self. And the more of our higher self, divine light we have room for, the more calm and grounded we are. When we get anxious, it's really contraction.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it feels like, right? Very physically, it can be, I mean, you can feel like a heart
Oh,
attack,
yeah.
right? Like that. So now
Yeah.
there's much less divine spirit essence left, and there's a lot more scared little human body that feels like, hunted prey in the world. When
Mhm.
we can come back and know, I'm going to be in here, I'm going to breathe into it, I'm going to stay with it, I'm going to feel it, then the cup widens again, and then higher self loving light pours in. And just like a kid that got picked up out of the crib on a dark night by loving arms, relaxes into those arms. That's
Yeah.
kind of the alchemical process of bringing love in.
Mm. I want to address this comment too from Zayara. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hi, I'm having a very hard time trying to assimilate my experiences with the life I live. Um, just out of the gate, so many of us are struggling right now because of all the changes since 2020
Mhm.
that have happened to
Yeah.
us. I think there's so much trauma there,
Mhm.
that we're still like carrying
Mhm.
through.
Yes.
And now in the world globally, there's so much to deal with, and because of social media, we're seeing it, we're experiencing it, we're feeling other people's pain and suffering. So like,
Yeah.
what do you do? You can't help but get affected. And if
Right.
that's what Zaire is talking about, I mean, then we have personal problems on top of
Mhm.
that. and
Mhm.
it all becomes just this huge boulder that
Yeah.
like sits on our back. So
Mhm.
how do you use the somatic process? Do you just tackle one thing at a time? Like, what do you do when somebody is really struggling to assimilate their experiences in today's life and the life that
Yeah.
we're I think that's an excellent question.
It is an excellent question, and another way to phrase it, and to see if I got this right, it's almost like we have to process or digest the experiences, right? So the experiences are stuck in the body, and then there's a digesting of it, a processing of it, and we just need to take time out for that. And I'll say that in my own life, I wake up in the morning and I lay in my bed and I feel my body and I love on my body. I feel the knot that's sitting there. I'm with it. Maybe I tune into what that's about. Maybe it's simply a contraction. So I stay with it and I'm with it. And many times during the day, I do that. I drop into my body and really feel what's going on. So that's kind of on the personal level how I work through it. I think, the groups that I host where people come together and do this work
Mm,
together is really
yeah.
powerful because first of all, you realize you're so not alone.
Yeah, I
Whenever
love
we do
that.
group processing where one person brings an actual trigger, something that triggered them in their life with a partner, and there's like shame and tenderness and vulnerability around bringing a trigger, like whatever it is. And because no matter what triggers us, it harkens back to a really young tender age that needs to be held. Now if everyone in a group brings that loving presence to you as you sit with it, that really
Mm,
does help. But you have to be in there yourself too. Like no one else can open your cup and allow the love in, but it can feel a little safer to do it with the group. The other thing that came to mind with that question was, we're recovering right now. I really think we are all sort of collectively needing more sleep, more
mm,
rest, less screen time, earlier to bed, get a book out instead of a screen. I think
yes,
it stresses our systems out to be on screen so much. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I can get away with hardly anything diet wise. Like I just need good home cooked food. Um, and that's a big piece of it too. I had to quit
I agree.
caffeine recently. It was like the caffeine was stressing my body out. I just had to give it a real break. And now have just teeny little amount. But again, it's that self love. Like, how would you treat a traumatized child? So,
Yeah,
say if you had decided to foster a really traumatized child and bring them in,
yeah,
what would you do? What kind of meals would you cook for them? When would bedtime be? What kind of loving evening prayer or conversation would you have? How would you nurture? Nurturing and nourishment, like that really feels like key words right now. I mean, I hear this from so many people. It's like, wow, I just want to go to bed at 6 p.m.
yeah,
with my book.
yeah.
And so it's a fine line between not completely isolating, um,
Mhm.
but there is more need for rest, restoration, rejuvenation right now, and gently finding and opening up again socially, and perhaps in a more meaningful way. I think what happened for a lot of people during COVID was also that the relationships that maybe weren't that healthy,
Yeah,
they fell apart. A lot of relationships, both romantic but also friendships, just kind of fell apart.
yeah,
But then what's there in this vacuum is like,
right.
well, now I have less friends and I don't have a partner or whatever it is. So I think there's also a call to be willing to feel and be alone. Like, what is it that makes it scary to be alone, for example?
And
What
I
is it?
think you hit the nail on the head with that because, I think it was definitely good that those relationships, whatever they were, fell apart because they
Mhm.
weren't genuine to begin with, or they would have still been with you. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people too, because of the way we're designed, we're social beings, and the internet is so counterintuitive to that.
Yeah.
And we all rely on our phones People don't even want phone calls anymore. Everything is
Mhm.
just text me, just text
Yeah.
me.
Right.
It's a sad state if you think
Yeah.
about it. So
Right.
the fact that you have a group of folks that you don't know at all, but you can trust, you have to kind of put your trust out there
Mhm.
and just sit with them
Mhm.
online, even, right? You can do this through Zoom.
Yeah.
You make this connection with them and share and kind of like love each other, even though you don't know that person, you could
Yeah.
still, right,
Right.
send loving vibes and healing vibes.
Yeah.
How many people do you have in your Zoom? Is there a limit? Is there a wait
Yeah.
list? Like, what is that
No,
like?
there's a limit. I just started another group up yesterday, and I haven't planned the one that comes after that, but stay tuned. And then I have another group coming up in January. So I have them kind of on an ongoing basis. I keep them small because I don't like to take more than 10 people. I have two running right now, one with 10 and one with 8. And that's kind of the maximum for when we want to be vulnerable. If you get much above that, we're going to kind of
Too
hang back.
much? Yeah.
You're less likely to feel that bonding. I
Yeah.
spend a lot of time both in these groups, but I also teach yoga teacher training programs here in Minneapolis at Minneapolis College. I spend a lot of time creating what I called this field of presence. Like you and I have a field of presence right now, and your
Yes.
listeners are coming into that field of presence and bringing their presence to it. And something creative and wise starts to bubble up in that
Yes.
field.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what I think we can do with each other through Zoom. And it's like, yeah, we don't love sitting here and looking at a screen, but there's something energetic happening that's
Oh,
way
no, there
beyond the
is.
screen. Yes. There's a
Abso-freaking-lutely there
connection
is.
there. Mhm.
Absolutely. And, Sarah made a statement here that I think is very profound. It's a two-part. She says, "I've seen beyond the veil. It's complicated and difficult for me to articulate. We are not alone. There are more than just us. I've seen them." And I would agree with that, and I think that's important for folks that feel alone to
Mhm.
remember that we're not alone.
Well, and
So
could even be if you think, okay, maybe there's a spiritual reason for the aloneness, and it is to rediscover the divine spirits,
yes,
angels, helpers on the other side. And I would completely agree. I have that same experience, and it is in my darkest alone times that suddenly that kind of breaks through. And I think there are many ways to connect with our helpers and guides and angels, whatever
mhm,
name you want to give to, you could say, non-embodied beings that really do love us.
yeah,
And I think journaling is one of the things I suggest to all my
yes,
clients in the morning. Just
love that.
journal, get it all out. And sometimes it's like automatic writing, something will come through, or you just speak to them as though, okay, I can't see your physical body because you don't have one, but I can feel it. So I know you're
Absolutely,
here. Please help me. Please, lift me up. Fill my heart with your love. Help me see everyone through eyes of love. Help that others may see me through eyes of love. Whatever it is, I think we can have that communication on an ongoing basis and start living life, yes, as though we're not alone. We are receiving a lot of help.
yeah. Allison too kind of validated that, saying that the past 5 years feels like a communal wound. Wow, that's so well put. It really does. That got aggravated till we clean it out. I have parted with
Mhm.
a lot of people during that time for the better of me and them, and that's
Yeah,
so true. That's
yeah.
so true. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a little sad as well, right? I mean, even if it was for the higher good, and you can totally see why it would be like forcing things to try and still hang out with that group or these people or that part of your family, whatever it might be.
yeah,
But ultimately, it's like now we really have to curate in a really intentional way. Where do I give my presence, and
right.
who gets to have my presence? Right. And that's where I think the hardest thing for me right now, because I'm sort of stripped myself of so many of the typical numbing agents, but I feel like I pick up my phone too much. So that's
Ah,
the one I'm working on right now. It's like turning off my Wi-Fi
Yeah.
shutting down my phone, like all the way down and all the way down. And then there's like a little space where it's like loneliness or agitation or restlessness or something that sets in. And then it's like I move through that. And then all of a sudden, it's like it's me and my art materials and my journals and my cooking. And, it's like, wow, I'm back in the 90s or something.
Right, right. We've forgotten how wonderful those moments are.
Mhm.
Just walking your dog and, like, being in nature, like, I love that. I do it several times a day, just touching trees and kinda just looking
Mhm.
up at the birds and, being a part of nature is so
Mhm.
very healing, and I know there's a lot of folks, Heidi's one of them that absolutely believes the same and does the same, and I think all of that is very healing. Be crafty, do some crafts,
Yeah.
paint, get in touch with your creativity. But I wanted to ask you, you said in your book that emotional triggers are trapped, like energy in our body,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And these frozen knots of energy or emotional triggers are linked to the concept of karma. So that like piqued my interest
Yep.
very much so. And you
Mhm.
went on to say that karma is very much about the unresolved or unprocessed emotional energy that we carry with us.
Right.
So, because I talk to a lot of folks about karma, some
Mhm.
people have different ideas about it.
Yep.
I'm dying for you to dig into that.
Yeah, and I love that. And that is something that has shifted with me as I've worked with my body in this way. And I think of karma as frozen emotion. So
Mm,
energy in motion versus frozen emotion that keeps playing out. So that might very well be that you've done something unkind to someone too. Well, that's also frozen. If you because some part of you, if you do something unkind, has to kind of ward itself off a little bit because it doesn't feel right. Anything but treating everybody with loving kindness feels wrong on some
it
level
does.
energetically, and something contracts. And then whatever that contracted is, that is contained in there, that will attract like. So like attract like. So for example, if we think of someone who has been in an abusive relationship and then they go out and find another abusive relationship, well, it's not karma in the sense like they deserved it, but it's
Right.
karma in the sense that there's a compulsive repetition. So that's kind of how I think of it, as a compulsive repetition and something that we need to find the origin of. Where is that pattern kind of hidden in the body? Which is why when we're triggered, something is uncomfortable out there that doesn't feel good. That's like Pandora's box is open,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
can now go in and clean it up. And if we just do all the outs and kind of forget about it, it's going to repeat itself, 6 months later, a year later. Like, I really have not seen anybody stop those repetitive patterns without going to the root of the pattern. And the root of the pattern lies in the energy field of the body. So,
Yeah.
whatever is out there that's triggering you that is uncomfortable, you don't even have to put a judgment on, did I cause this? Because, of course, we cause things. Whenever we've been triggered and lashed out, numbed out or whatever, we've caused pain. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
So we're all
Absolutely.
kind of culprits in that sense in how we've wounded each other. But the cure in my mind remains the same. I am triggered. I want to check out, numb out, lash out. I
Yeah.
won't, because I have enough witnessing in myself to see that that's what I want to do. I'm going to sit with the energy field of my body. It's sitting in my stomach. I'm going to be with it. Okay, here's what it's really about. And I give examples of that in the book of
Mhm.
what it's really about. And it's so often about something that is way older if we can tap into what is contained in here. And
Mm.
when we can bring our loving awareness to that frozen place and it starts to loosen up. First of all, we have less the story that we're fired up, which is something where us being the victim of someone else. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, there's room for another perspective. We're not cramming the other perspective down our own throat, like, okay, rationally, I know this is crazy. I really should be thinking this. That's not going to stick. But when it comes from the inside, because something is softened and open, then the
Mhm.
real loving compassion pours in, and all of a sudden there is room to see the humanity in the other. Not because I have to, because this is the spiritual exercise I'm doing, but because
Yeah.
I truly see the light of love in the other person, and I see their pain. And that's also where real forgiveness can come from.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how important it is to forgive others for our healing. How does that work? And do
So
we really forgive them? Like how do you think that
Yeah,
works?
that's a whole chapter in the book, and it's an exercise that I do also with my groups, where we acknowledge that we have had an old injury of sorts that then has played out, and we have cleverly
Yeah.
drawn in just the type of villains that were like the stand-in for the original villain. And
Mm,
there could be a number of them that have, in a sense, we've had this similar dynamic with that villain, that villain, and that villain that was really put in place when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old with a
mhm,
parent. And now I keep having it out in a similar way with these people. Now I'm tied in energetically with each of these people, and my resentment toward them and the story I carry around them, it is blocking my life energy.
oh,
So
yeah,
I would say on the energetic level, the forgiveness is a releasing of that. That doesn't mean condoning, because
right,
between people that are both triggered and wounded, there's going to be, very unkind things
yeah,
darting back and forth. So it's not about saying it's okay that you hurt me, and sometimes in really bad ways, but it is a releasing. I release you for what you did to me, and what I perceive you having done to me, and whether you intended to and the things you didn't intend to. And I ask that you forgive me for how I hurt you, and how I may have done things intentionally or unintentionally that also hurt you. I love the Ho'oponopono. Are you familiar with that?
no,
So that's a Hawaiian prayer that was, it was created by, I believe he was a psychiatrist. He worked in a psychiatric ward in Hawaii with the worst of the worst that were never going to be let out. And he sat quietly every day with each name of each person in his ward and said, I'm
mm,
sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And he healed every person in that ward. You can look it up. This is quite the thing. And it's the untying of another person, and it's also recognizing that any we have sinned against each other. We have been unkind to each other. So when I think of taking someone through a forgiveness process, or I'm taking myself through a forgiveness process, I try to remember those I'm sorry. And I can't remember a time when there hasn't actually been also something for me to be sorry about. So that's what I focus on. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Please forgive me for hurting you that way. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you and thank you for, what I learned here. Yes, exactly. That's the one. And that frees you, and it also frees them to not carry your projection of your villain, because we all carry projections all the time.
oh,
You know,
yeah,
our little knots are like heat seeking missiles. They're gonna find somebody you'll be my villain. You'll be the one who will betray me and let me down and
sure,
abandon me. So I'm going to put you in that role, and now I'm going to have it out with you because you're doing that to me. And so it's like pulling that projection back,
yeah.
that to some degree I painted you as a villain in my life, because that villain lives as a knot in me, and then it comes at me from the outside, and you allowed me to see that. And I'm actually done having it out with all these villains in my life. I'm going to go in and find the root from which they got projected.
Yeah. And I always think about when Jesus was crucified and said the words that we all know,
Yeah.
"I forgive them, for they know not what they do."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
and forgive me for that, because I knew not what I did, right? For the
exactly.
time, we all are in need. It's in the Lord's Prayer, forgive our trespasses. It's
Yes, as we
every
forgive those.
single day we
Yeah,
probably trespass against our
yeah.
brother, and we're trespassed against. So the forgiveness is an ongoing clearing of that.
And I think that holds true even if the other party doesn't want to participate in your forgiveness, because
Yes.
as long as you participate in it and say
Yeah.
those beautiful words, I love you,
Mhm.
please forgive me, I'm sorry, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think that's basically what can definitely lead to healing. Although some people do need to go to therapy because the healing is so deep.
Mhm.
It's so deep, and it's like a spider's web
Yeah.
that, they hurt me. So this is what happened. This caused that in my life.
Mhm.
And they kind of spider web it into everything that's wrong.
Yes, I see that, and, Carolyn, I would say that when you become fully present in the body, guided into the body, feeling the breath, s becoming quiet and still inside,
Mhm.
and everyone can go there, and that's a lot of what my courses are, is the guidance into that place.
Yeah.
Then you are aligned with your own divinity, with your own higher self, and then
Yeah.
a lot of that ego web, really, of all the reasons why I'm mad and hurt and all of the
Yeah.
things, that starts to fall away on its own when you're
Mm.
aligned with your higher self and the divine, the divine inside. So yes to therapy, um, and some level of practice that puts you in touch with present, loving presence, higher self, the divine,
Like
God.
a combination of the two.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Like,
Mhm.
I'm kind of thinking of doing this myself with you because I have so many knots still that I know are unresolved. And I know this type of work would definitely be a great way to heal. So I'm going to have to sign up to one of
Yeah,
your
well, I
sessions.
welcome you. Yeah, that would
Thank
be an
you.
honor to
Yeah.
have
I
you. I mean, you're
see,
so well
I
versed in all this.
thank you. I see the benefit in just being with like-minded people who are in the same situation
Yeah.
and being able to heal together, and having a master like you at the helm,
Mhm.
kind of guiding that. I think that's a brilliant way to heal. And I think self-love is so important.
Mhm.
I've written so many articles on self-love, and I think that we forget how to love ourselves. We think we do love ourselves, but think about it. You look in the mirror and you go, I'm fat, my nose is crooked, I don't like the color of my hair. So
Mhm.
you're always critical
Yeah.
of yourself physically,
Yeah.
right? And then some of us eat because, like you said before, those are the things we do. We
Mhm.
drink, we eat, we do what. So, like that is part and parcel to realizing that you're really not loving yourself if you're doing all
Yeah.
of these things, right?
Right. I saw a meme in the last couple of days somewhere, that said, uh, "Show me how much your partner loves you, and it will tell me how much you love yourself." Like there's something
Mm,
about we cannot attract. Like I work with a lot of women that really want to attract, the big supportive, I'm
yeah,
there, stable, I've got you love, but is not embodying that. And it really starts with being there for yourself that way, because that becomes your cup. The
yes,
cup that you have, like somewhere in the Bible, it says to those who much are given, more will be given, or something like that. And that can seem really
yeah,
unfair, but I think it's literally the size of the cup, the
yeah,
inner
I
space.
agree.
When we contract in fear, we push spirit breath out, breath and
Yes.
spirit being synonymous. And when we open up that cup, it overflows. My
Gosh,
cup
that's so
overflows.
beautifully said. You talk about breath work a lot too in your
Mm.
book, and
Yeah.
give us exercises to do, which I love, and I plan on doing them. And I try different ones. And there were some in there that really piqued my interest. How important is that in the healing process and the letting go process?
Yeah, so I mean we've dropped so far from from grace in a certain sense that we really believe that we are cut off from spirit most of the time. I mean, some of us walk with some awareness that, I'm a spirit being, there's spirit guides around me. But for the most part, it's like, here's Maria, this is who I am. So, but in the book, I invite you to consider that you are the breath. And in my native tongue in Denmark, the word for breath and the word for spirit are the same.
Oh,
So when we
wow.
say I breathe in, we say I spirit in. And when we say I breathe out, I spirit out. Spirit in, spirit out. So
Wow.
by that same token, when we contract in fear, we push spirit out. We
Mm,
literally have a greater ratio of scared animal energy and a lesser ratio of divine connected oneness in a certain
mm,
sense. So the breath work, the various types of breath exercises I teach, is all about reminding us of what we already know on a deep level, because we are the spirit that embodies this body. So you might say, I am the divine in Maria. I'm here to heal Maria. I'm here to heal this Maria character
mm,
who believes that she's not fully lovable. There are places in her that don't yet know love. They're too contracted. And I'm here to love those places back into wholeness. Right? So that's me from the perspective of being a spirit here with Maria. I am also Maria, the body that feels cut off from God and that receives spirit, receives breath, and can say, I open myself up to the breath. So you
mm,
might say, I could say from the perspective of my body, I release and let go of all fear based contractions. And I open myself to the love of God. And then the breath, the God, the divine can say, I am here.
mm,
I love you. I've got you. So the original word for yoga, the translation for yoga to yoke is to unite spirit, breath with the body. That the two come together so that I spiritualize my own body. I breathe my own body. So if we sit for a moment, even just now, eyes closed, take a deep breath in through the nose and feel the exhale. Just in that, there was a
yeah.
quiet, right? The other um, uh, way that we define yoga in the yoga world is yoga chitta ritti nirodha, and it means that yoga is the cessation of the fluctuation of the mind, so that who we really are, is the essence that is there before the thought comes in and after the thought leaves. But
Mm,
we're so trained in the Descartes was a French philosopher who said, I think, therefore I am. And that's
yeah.
really kind of that European model of education, that I am an academic
I am my
thinking
thoughts.
intellectual
Yeah.
person. Right. So we forget that no, that is what we operate through inside the matrix, but it's not who we are. It's not what we are. So we're really here through the breath, feeling the breath, remembering that we are the breath moving through this body, and that the breath can guide me. Like when I told you about being a little kid and I knew how to make myself loosen my body, and then I would know just where to go. And it's like, well, what if I were loose all the time and could just be guided by my spirit to where to
Mm,
go?
yeah.
And when
Oh,
I
I love
am,
that.
life is really fun, be like the
Yeah.
little children, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't think so much. They're like, I'm going to go over behind, in this part of the sandbox, and I'm going to build this. And, there's just this more spontaneous. And we get a little rigid when we think we have to like sort it all out in the left brain intellect, or Google it, or AI it. Like, where's the inspiration in that?
Yeah.
And all the most magical things that ever happened in our lives is always from that inspired place.
Oh, yeah.
The rest
Definitely.
is the filler.
It is a filler.
Mhm.
It's funny, I think that quote would have been so much better if he had said, "I breathe, therefore I am." Because
Yes.
if you think about it, when your children are born, I have
Mhm.
2 wonderful ones, the first thing you see is that breath
Yeah.
of life, and
You
then the
wait for that.
you
Yeah.
wait for that. I mean,
Mhm.
unfortunately, some doctors still spank, which I think is traumatic, but
Yeah.
and then when we pass this earth, our breath leaving our body, there's such a
Yeah.
connectedness, right,
Yeah.
between the 2 events.
Yes. Absolutely, 100%. And then in between that first breath, giving
Yeah.
life and animating this body, and then the last exhale, and then the body, dust to dust decays. In between that, we forget. We start to identify so strongly with being the body. So what if we could keep that more alive, that sense that there is something greater moving through us and moving with
Yeah.
us and loving us and guiding us, and that we could loosen up some of that fear
Yeah,
that, I mean, every horrendous
absolutely.
act that's happening in the world is not being guided from the loving heart, right? It's being guided from a fearful, contracted vessel.
Absolutely. Another thing you touched upon in your book that really resonated with me is words and the language that we talk to ourselves, to others.
Mm.
And you said, like, watch, if I get this correctly, you said, watch for the use of always and never. And,
Yes,
that really hit home
I love
because
that.
I often hear a lot of very grounded spiritual people say, those 2 words should
Yeah,
never come out of your mouth because nothing is always
yeah.
or never,
Yeah.
right? Tell us about
Well,
that.
yes, I mean, it's an instant, sign, and it's okay to come out of your mouth as long as you can say to yourself, "Oops, I'm triggered." Because,
Yes.
that what we really want to learn to do is catch that we're triggered. Start to recognize, "Okay, I just either said or thought always and never. I'm triggered." Or
Mm.
there's a knot in my stomach, I'm triggered. But absolutely, it's you can always I just said it. You can always challenge always and never, because
Yeah.
it's never that black and white. Now I said both always and never in that sentence.
But for a point, for a
Yeah,
good point. But I
yeah.
love that because I think it's so true. And talking about triggers, like, do you notice that, like, you get up in the morning and say you stub your toe and
Mhm,
you start cursing up a storm,
mhm,
"Ah, darn it," and you start, and it just you're vibrating this
mhm,
anger because you
mhm.
have to get ready for work and get on with your day, and now you got this toe that's just not in a good place, and then all
Yeah,
of a sudden, your mood just shifts, and then you have to go to the store later, and then you go to the store and you notice the person in front of you is acting like a jerk and maybe writing a check, and who writes checks anymore? And you're finding like the littlest things to annoy
yes,
you. Then you get in your car and there's
yeah.
a jerk in front of you and you start cursing at them.
And they
So how
keep
does that
going right and left when you're
Yes,
going right and left, that they're put on earth to bug you.
yes. But is it true that we, like that's why sometimes if my day starts off with a trigger, I do some breath work to release that because I do not want to carry that
Right,
with me throughout my day.
right.
So how can we empower ourselves not to let that happen? Is it just meditating for a minute, 30 seconds? Like what's your recommendation?
Well, I mean, that could happen at any given time, and it's always some sort of stress. It's not being present, right? It's always like the mind is one place and the body is somewhere else, and you've got to
Yeah.
bring the two back together. So I always tell my students, there's always a bathroom. There's always the bathroom trick. I got to go to the bathroom, whether you're with other people. Got to go to the bathroom, close the door, and pray. Pray. I feel
Yeah.
my body. I feel my legs. I am right
Yes.
here. I'm with my breath. I fill myself with light. I say something out loud, let the grace of God fill me, let the loving light of presence fill me. Your words, it doesn't have to be my language, but we all have language for what loving presence is. Give yourself a couple of minutes and you can shift that. But we've all been there, right? The doorknob
Oh,
catches our shirt and then we bang our head on the open, cabinet door that someone
right,
has
right.
closed and all those
Yeah.
things. But if I'm honest, it's always when I have agitated thoughts. So my body has been kind of abandoned because I'm off
Mm.
having agitated thoughts. My
Ah.
my husband used to ask me if I would, like, stub my toe or something like that, "What were you thinking right when that happened?" And if I'm
Oh,
honest, there was always something agitated. It was usually like I was
that's such a
irritated with
great
somebody inside of me,
correlation.
having an agitated inner conversation or something.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I think that's so brilliant to like stop when something happens and think about what were you thinking when that
yeah,
happened?
yeah,
Wow, I love that.
mhm.
That is great. Yeah. That got me. I like that a lot. So who developed the somatic healing program? I know I've heard of that absolutely and read about it in the past. So like how did you decide this was your thing? This was
Yeah.
going to be your thing?
Right. So I've been working with my body since I was very young. I was a ballerina when I was younger, and then I got into yoga and meditation, like I described to you. So I really thought that I was very present in my body and had great mastery of my body. And then about, what is it now, a little over 10 years ago, I took a weekend workshop on Soma Yoga, and it's a method somatics developed by a guy named Thomas Hanna.
Mhm.
um, and it was all about going into different parts of the body and activating a place and then releasing it and activating it. So finding the places that we think they're released, but it's a little bit like, you can see a person that has a little shoulder hiked up like that. And this muscle
Ah,
has just forgotten to release. So the way you'd go into that somatically is raise it up a little more, and with the breath, release it. And you can start to release all the places where your muscles are gripping. So that's sort of the idea. But what happened to me that first weekend workshop I took was, it was specifically in my low back, that I had so much fear and anxiety living in my low back that came out as I was working to release the tension that I just walked around with in my low back. And I had tears streaming down my cheeks. And then beyond that, that now I had sort of been woken up to the awareness, sort of like something had opened up and I was now aware of it. But it was months and months beyond that weekend workshop that I was still needing to remember, I'm doing it again. Even now I can feel it, like this little kind of tilt of the pelvis where I'm like ready, ready, ready to go. And my low back gets so tired and achy, and I would have to like let it go, release and let go. So that weekend workshop enticed me to take the whole 300-hour training in that, because
oh,
I was like,
wow.
wow. I mean, I literally thought I had it all down yoga wise with how much I work with my body. But this method specifically helps me get into places that I didn't even know I had, like places in the body where things were stored. So I did the training and started incorporating that. I was already teaching, but it started incorporating that. And it's mostly what I teach now. And for people that are local, and I also do it sometimes online, but for people who are local specifically, I teach workshops in that, because that is such a brilliant way of getting underneath the places where we're harboring things.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there's also another course I took that I also learned a lot from, was called somatic experiencing. And it's
Mhm.
a guy, I think he's a neuroscientist named Peter Levine. You might have to look up whether he's a neuroscientist, but something with neuro.
Yeah.
And he talks about also how things are stored in the body, trauma and experiences. And he did beautiful work with veterans that would come back from Iraq and have all kinds of trauma, and was able to release it through the body. So those are
Mm.
two things that taught me a lot, where I had to add to that, to from myself to really get underneath it,
Oh,
was the divine piece, the prayer piece. And that's maybe already
absolutely.
who I am. So, but that is when I felt like, when I was meeting the most scary, contracted uh, pain in my body, um, I wanted just to, climb the walls or run out of the room. Like, it was too much. But
Wow.
then when I started praying, like, be with me, come in with me, bring light to
Yes.
this place, suddenly something would
Yeah.
start to move through. So I think the most important message here is that whatever your emotional triggers are, that feel overwhelming, and they certainly have felt overwhelming to me at times. Nothing is greater than God. Like the God, the divine,
Amen.
Christ, whatever your language is, that love, that presence is greater than any pain. And you can bring those two together. Bring the pain together with the loving light of the divine,
Oh, yes.
and then something starts to melt. And that was when it kind of all clicked for me. But I certainly learned a lot of different disciplines, leading up to that are really, really helpful. And then breath work, I do a type of breath work called Breathe, Release It All that I also developed, which is a way of breathing fast. And I don't teach it in the book because it really is something you have to do with an instructor. I have taught it online, but it's a way of breathing in a fast paced way that also helps us go in and release from deep inside the body.
Now,
Yeah.
Walking Trees, I love that name too. That's a great name. Has said somatic dance has been life changing for them. Is that something you're familiar with? Is there
I'm I'm
something?
I'm not familiar with what that is specifically. I'd be curious about that. I'm going to look that up now that I saw that name.
Yeah, you'll have to tell us, Walking Trees. You'll have to tell us a little bit more about that because that does sound like something that maybe folks would find beneficial.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And I feel compelled to bring this to you to ask you. So if you know Dolores Cannon and her
Mhm.
work, correct?
Yeah.
So she she teaches us or has taught us that our past lives have greatly affected our current life and that
Yeah.
we're bringing a lot of the trauma from our past reincarnations into this life.
Right.
Is that something you consider, believe in, or is that something that's just like too woo woo for you? Like, where do
No,
you?
I absolutely am. I'm certain that's the case. I don't think you have to quote unquote believe that I have experienced that for this work to be the same. It's still about bringing loving light to it. But if a little kid comes in and almost immediately starts having some pretty traumatic experiences, it's probably brought from former lives into this life.
I agree with that.
And I think there's sort of the spiritual aspect of former lives, and then there's also the lineage, the generational stuff that very
Yeah.
likely when you become that person who's like, I am going to meet everything that's in my body, all the patterns, all
Mhm.
the traumas, you are likely also impacting your lineage, because the things that my mom was not able to get to or work on inside herself, it's going to be
Mm.
in me. And the more I
Absolutely.
can work on myself and clear myself, the less my kids will have to work on, and my grandkids. So, um, my mom and her mom before her and her mom before her, and not just on the female side of the family, but I probably I have more tools at my disposal than she did. So the tools at her
Yes,
disposal was gin and tonic, and that was
that's true.
the things that we have access to now. It's amazing. I mean, there's like deeply esoteric teachings
Oh, yeah.
from all over the world at our fingertips. So anyone can find a spiritual practice that helps them with this work. And
That
that
is
really
so
wasn't
true.
true even a generation ago.
So, Walking Tree says it's intuitive movement for healing. That sounds
Mm.
really nice. It kind of reminds me of like Tai Chi, but those are not really, those are designated kind of like karate movements. But I kind of see it on that same, um, what is this? Be the bliss they never thought possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Well, and
true.
I would definitely say, I mean, I dance a lot. I was a dancer when I was younger, and absolutely, whether it's dance or tai chi or somatic dance,
Yeah.
movement is so important,
Oh
because
gosh,
as
yeah.
you loosen the stuff and it starts to open up and you stay with a knot and it starts to clear, there can be kind of an intuitive urge to move. But also just walking or running or
Yes,
swimming or whatever, I think that movement is essential in releasing these things from the body.
absolutely. Yeah. And we're spiritual beings. And I think we're and I hear this statement a lot that we're spiritual beings living just in an earthly body, but our experience
Mhm.
is a spiritual one.
Right.
Um, and while it can be confusing for a lot of folks that are looking for healing, that it's an overload of programs, an overload of information, like they don't know which program to choose to help fix them. But I think that the beauty of speaking to folks like yourself and reading books like yours is that it enables you to pick and choose and find what works for you, right?
Yes. Well, absolutely. You have to resonate with the person who's, delivering the method. Um, and I again, back to prayer and intuition. I think when we really pray for healing, we will be shown a path, a way,
Yes.
run into a teacher, run into a book. I can remember when I was in my early 20s and I walked into a bookstore and found, I think it's Robert Sanford, my inner partner, secret inner partner, or something like that. And there was also this early understanding of how we project parts of ourselves out onto a partner, and then we get to kind of dance with them, and
Yeah,
vice
yeah.
versa. They do the same thing. And it was just that book practically dropped into my lap. And so you talked about it earlier, the sense of help and spirit guides that are always trying to lift us up and help us. That even though everything can feel heavy and contracted and anxious, we don't actually have to take that many steps in the right direction or clear ourselves that much to have a big boost from below,
Yes.
if you will. Like the wind is with us. I really think that the divine light, our higher selves, are very much with us and really trying to work with us. And I don't know why this is coming to me to say right now, but I
Hmm.
know in my own life, getting a lot of sleep really is
Yeah,
important right now. And that was one of the reasons I had to quit caffeine, because it was messing with my sleep. And that
sure.
deep sleep and getting enough of it, I think we're being worked on by spirit beings that are really trying to heal us and reestablish the connection. Because I think a lot of people feel a little cut off right now
Oh,
from
yeah.
higher self, from the divine, from God, and to keep establishing that connection, um, and doing things that bring us into that state of mind. And that could be different.
Mhm.
For one person, it's a walk in the woods. For someone else, it's baking something from scratch, or it's baking, or drawing, or painting, or it can be so many different things. But what makes you feel present? I have a group where we sit quietly together and mend things. So I have a little basket where I put,
Oh,
like, if I have a hole in a sweater or a tear in my pants or something, instead of throwing it out, every so often when that basket is getting full, we get together, we light candles, and we make tea, and we sit and mend. And
oh, I love that.
yes, it's a way of becoming present, and I think the phones, when we watch things, that's the opposite of being present. Now I'm in that person's world. Now I'm in that person's world. Now I'm in that person's head. Now I'm in that person's actions. Now I'm in that person's opinions. And it becomes a numbing way to not feel ourselves, but it's almost the opposite of being present. So we at least we have to counter it with some real sense of being present in ourselves, with ourselves. Cleaning makes you present. It could
It's,
be,
it's as much as
yeah.
we hate it, it really is. It's like aerobic exercise too, which is terrific. Like after I
Mhm.
clean, I get some workout, it's
Mhm.
good.
Right.
But I want to also bring to your attention, how do you deal with, let's face it, there are negative entities.
Mhm.
We live in darkness and we live in light.
Yeah.
And it's just that way.
Yeah.
There's darkness and light, and that's just the world that we live
Yeah.
in. How do you personally deal with any negative forces that you might, because not everybody is a good soul.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that are not good characters. They're not good players, and
Yeah.
they're out to hurt people. And
Mhm.
you have to protect yourself as a
Mhm.
human living
Mhm.
in this body, right?
Mhm.
What do you recommend we do to protect ourselves? Is it a combination of everything we talked about, breathing, meditation, all of the above? What do you do?
Well, I pray a lot and I stay as present and grounded as I can. Gardening, absolutely. Being outside, Heidi, I love that. But I think the more you practice things that enhance your intuition, like avoid alcohol, if you ask me, like avoid things that cloud you, because
Yeah.
what's going to really protect you is your radar, your instincts, your
Yeah, yeah.
intuition.
Your spidey senses.
Yes, exactly. And that sense of, yeah, I'm going to keep driving, or I'm not going to walk here, or I think
Yes.
we have that capacity, and the more we keep that open, that is certainly going to protect us. I believe strongly in prayer. Sometimes I'll wake
Yes.
up. My daughter went to school in Europe for 7 years, and she was sort of out of my reach from the age of 17, and I would sometimes be gripped with, oh my God, what's happening? And what if she's out late at night? And I would
Exactly.
pray, God, please protect her. May the light be around her.
Yes.
May she
Put a
be
light
bright.
around her.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would say things like that out loud. And then I would leave it, that it's my little earth scared self doesn't
Yes.
have that much power.
Absolutely.
So I give the power where the
Absolutely.
power is to take care of things, and then I can sleep, because on that earth body level, I'm not all that powerful. I ask
I
to go
love
to
this
sleep
too.
before I sleep.
I
I
love
like that.
that. That's such a good idea too, Heidi. Thank you. And then Mish said a very profound statement, and I think this is so true. We need to know the bad to know what's bad. And that
Yeah.
is so true. We need to
Mhm.
be aware. And like you said, I mean, every now and then I like a glass of wine. I'm not going to lie if I'm out to dinner, but
Mhm.
I just make sure I have one glass of wine.
Right.
Like that's good for me. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Right.
It puts me just in a relaxed place and I can enjoy it with my meal. And I feel like we can't be perfect. We're going
Right.
to eat ice cream. We're
Mhm.
going to eat potato chips. But as
Mhm.
long as we keep it in moderation,
Yeah.
that's the key. What do you think?
Well, so with the addictions that we do talk about when we go through the course, what is our numbing agent?
Right.
Um, I would say any numbing agent, I mean, there are some that are like, poisonous and lethal, but any of those sort of numbing agents we've talked about, I'm not saying cut them out. I'm saying take a breath or two before you go to it. So it's recognizing that, okay, when I pick up my phone, or if I want to have ice cream, or if I want to have the wine or something, um, is there something I'm trying not to feel? And can I take a minute before I have that and
Yeah,
just
that's excellent.
let my body feel what's going on? And maybe sometimes it's just, I'm at a birthday party and I just want to party, and it's joyful and it's a celebration. That's a different motivation than
Gotcha.
if, I'm really sad, I'm alone, and I'm just going to eat a pint of ice cream. And I say, well, eat the pint of ice cream, but give your body 5 minutes to talk to you first. I was at a meditation retreat in England in August, and they were serving moderation. Yeah, that's a good one. They were serving like little pastries in between. There was meditation session after meditation session all day long for 7 days, and then they were serving like coffee, tea, and little pastries in between. And I didn't have much because I just wanted to eat at the meals. But during one of the breaks, I ate a pastry, and I had worked on something, like something had come up that I'd been sitting with, deep pain from very young age. And then I went out and I was like gobbled a pastry, and then I went back inside. Okay, I'm going to go back and work
Ah,
with that energy. Well, it was gone. I couldn't access it. I was like, wow, that's all the sugar it took for me to get cut off from what I was working on. I couldn't find it.
wow.
So it's just to say too, there's nothing wrong with a pastry in and of itself, but if it's like shutting up a small voice
Yeah.
that wants to be heard, then it is a problem.
Yeah.
And that's
And
a
I
very
I
different.
love I love how you said to ask yourself, why am I eating this ice cream right now?
Yeah.
And look at your motivation behind
Mm,
that. Because I
mm,
can't tell you how many times I've reached for ice cream and
mhm.
then I went, I don't need that. You
Right.
kind of catch yourself,
Right.
which is good if you
Mm,
can do that. But I
yeah.
love that asking yourself, why
Yeah.
am I doing this right now?
Right,
What's
and not
my
shaming
motivation?
yourself, because we tend to think that all the
Right.
numbing agents and all the devices, it's either matter of shame or, "F that, I'm just gonna have it." It becomes this tug of war instead of, "Okay, I know that that's one of my go-tos. I'm still gonna have it, I love it, I'm gonna watch a movie and eat ice cream, and I can't
Yeah.
wait, it's gonna be so cozy. I'm just gonna give myself a moment. Is there something here that you wanna share before I do that?" And that's one of the ways I release. Like, that was an actual little release. So this weird kind of yawning happens,
Yeah.
getting ready to drive.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, there is a you can get rigid where you suddenly can't have anything, and I don't think it's about becoming ascetic. I
Yeah.
think
I
it's about
agree.
becoming mindfully, lovingly aware of, are you trying to tell me something?
Yeah.
Is there something that you want to share with me?
Mm.
And having that attitude toward yourself all the time.
I love
And
that.
then once, and if you're two good friends sitting together, and I'm going to tell you what's on my heart and what's in my body, and I'm going to share that with you, and you're empathically listening, and then you're going to do it for me. And now we're going to have this cake I baked, and we're lighting
Mm.
a candle, and we're going to make some tea. Th- that's cozy and a celebration. So it's all about, are you trying to shut something up or not? That would be the question.
Yeah, I love that. I once heard a story that really resonated with me. Um, there was a gentleman and his best friend, and he hadn't heard from him in a few days. And then all of a sudden, he texted him and he said, "Hey, how's it going?" And it was just a very benign kind of conversation. And the other friend was like, "Okay, I got to run." He was busy. So about a month or two later, the other friend had tried to commit suicide.
Oh.
And the other friend went to him and said, "Why didn't you reach out to me? Like, why
Mhm.
didn't you come to me? I've known you for X amount of years. You could have come to me. I would have helped you." And the other friend said, "But I did come to you. I did. I texted you." He
Aw.
said, "But you didn't let me know." Like, he
Mm.
said, "But you should have known." Like, and there was that
Mhm.
expectation. So they
Mhm.
came up with a plan that I thought was brilliant. He said, "Whenever you're in trouble," because the theory is that if you give someone 8 minutes of your time, you can
Yeah.
save their life.
Wow.
So they have a signal.
Mm.
And now they text each other and go, "Hey, do you have 8 minutes?"
Aw.
So, and I love that
Yeah.
to like do with your best buddies, your
Right.
friends, kind of
Yes.
say, "Hey, I
Yeah.
know we're all busy. We're in a busy world.
Mhm.
But if I text you, 'Hey, I need 8 minutes,' that's
Yeah.
really
Right.
something serious." Because I
Yes.
think you're right. Like, we need each other so
Yeah.
much for
Absolutely.
healing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a sharing exercise I do with my yoga teacher training students and people in my groups too, where they ask each other, they will share something, and then the other person will listen and then reflect back what was said. And it's
Mm,
timed so that, and it actually takes 8 minutes, because one person will share for 8 minutes,
mm.
be reflected back to for 8 minutes, the other person will share for no, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. So it's eight
Yeah, yeah,
eight minutes.
yeah.
And I did that once with the whole faculty at St. Paul College where I worked. And afterwards, people came up to me and said, "I've never had such a deep conversation with a colleague ever."
Oh,
And
that's
a lot of
wonderful.
them, and I got calls for weeks
Yeah,
after, like, "That was so special. That was so deep. I didn't know." And
yeah.
it was like it was an 8-minute conversation,
That's crazy.
you
And you have to
know?
look at the number 8 too. It's like an infinity symbol,
Yes.
right? So you have to kinda
Yes.
look at the numerology
Yes.
aspect of it. There's
Right.
so much we're such complex beings, but we're
Mhm.
such beautiful beings, and
Yeah.
we've been gifted with soul and spirit and the
Mhm.
ability to love one another and heal,
Yeah.
and it's people like you that help us do this.
And
So
you.
gratitude. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Gratitude to you for writing this book and putting, so much into it. You can just tell as you're reading it that it's from your soul. So
Mhm.
folks, I definitely highly recommend you go check it out. Again, I have the link to where you can pick up a copy and you could get it on our website that's running For folks that are listening, it's Maria. It's her name. It's MARIATOSO.com, because
Right.
we do have a lot of FM listeners as well. So, in closing, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, if you take nothing else away from this interview, put your hands on your heart once a day and simply say, I love you. I've got you. I'm here. I want to know you. I want to listen. Like, give yourself that. I think that's very powerful. And I think a lot of things will be born out of that. That really does come from self love. And exactly what that is, I'm not going to dictate for someone else, but the self love, like, use your words in your hands to love on yourself.
Oh, I love that. Do you have another book in the works, or do you have
I
any plans?
do. I
Yeah.
do. Well, so what, this book, it was sort of born out of really understanding how our triggers show up in romantic relationships. And that's very much what gave birth to this book. Now I'm also recognizing how many of us don't do the next big thing creatively or professionally because we're triggered, we're scared, we
Yeah.
have, it's out of our comfort zone. And even stepping out of our comfort zone, we bump into the places where we're constricted. So people try to manifest things, and do affirmations and all of that, but
Yeah.
without eliminating or releasing the negative tapes that actually are working counter to the mission and the vision. So the working
Mm.
title is Heal What Hurts, Your Mission and Your Vision.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's kind of taking it maybe a little step out into the world. And I think especially women tend to talk a lot about the glass ceiling, where there's like an inner glass ceiling where there's just things that this is going to make me too uncomfortable. I'm going to be too scared and
Oh
contracted
gosh,
inside my
yeah.
body, even just public speaking, for example. And if we can dissolve those contracted places, that public speaking becomes effortless, and stepping into the next
Mm.
natural step in your career. And then we stop holding ourselves back, because there's been a lot of busyness around sort of fighting the patriarchy and fighting what is
Oh,
oppressing us
it's
from the
awful.
outside, but what about the things that are oppressing us from the inside?
Right. Look at how we have to deal with imposter syndrome. Like, I remember first
Yes.
learning and that
Yeah.
I found that to be shocking, but we
Yeah.
all do it. We
Yes.
all do it, whether we realize it or not. I would love to have you back for another discussion. I hope you would come back
Oh, I would
and
love to. This has been so
oh,
nice,
awesome,
Caroline. You're
awesome.
awesome. You ask all the
Oh,
best questions.
thank
I hope
you,
to
thank
meet you
you.
at some point. Yeah, and you be my
I would
guest in
love
one of
that.
my groups. So, the door
Oh, I
is
would love
open.
that.
Yes, come as my
I
guest.
would love that. We will be in touch, Maria, for sure. I will
Thank
be
you.
emailing you. God bless and thank you. You truly are a gift to humanity, and I'm not just saying that for saying it, but I feel that right through the screen. Your work is so vital to help us heal. And as I said earlier, we're all going through it, and it's people like you that really are helping us heal. Thank you so much.
And you get the word out there, which is a huge piece of it.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
will
Caroline.
speak to you
Yeah.
soon, dear.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. And thank you so much, I can't stand when the screen is that big. It's like, who wants to see their face that big? Self-love, right? Anyway, thanks to everybody in the chat. I love you guys. I know some folks are in there and they don't really leave comments. That's perfectly fine. And Mish, you're right about the ice cream. I have to just mention she commented that it's really interesting how little ones know. Like, you just know what's good. You know what tastes good and what's calming and soothing to the soul. But thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm always full of gratitude. Start my day with it and I end my day with it. And you guys are absolutely a part of that. My gratitude to Maria. I'm so blessed to be able to do this and meet people like her and experience the God given wonder that's inside of people like Maria that help us heal and share the love. It's just an absolutely beautiful thing. So, again, you've been listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. And we are live on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. If you're listening on FM, head on over to YouTube, check us out. I have my own channel there aside from the network. I would love some thumbs up and some subscriptions if you want to subscribe so you can get notified whenever we're about to go live as well. And this wraps up another incredible conversation. And again, I thank you, Maria. Your book, Heal What Hurts, the somatic process that gets results when therapy fails. Beautiful title. It says it all. So if you've been doing the hard work in therapy, but you still feel like you have these emotional triggers that are running your life, Maria's message is clear. The missing piece isn't your story, it's in your body. So definitely go to her website and check out her book. I highly recommend it. And thank you all. Thank you, Mish. We are blessed. Thank you. Love you guys. Love you all dearly. And I will see you tomorrow before you split. Let me just tell you, I have a show tomorrow. I am taking on 3 shows a week right now. Why? Because I have so many amazing guests that I just want to fit into the network. And tomorrow we're going to be discussing daughters and how they're honoring their mothers from the other side. And that's with Janet Lynn Rossman, and that is at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So whether you've lost your mother or a grandmother and they're on the other side, how we honor them. So going to be a great topic. Thank you all. God bless each and every one of you. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.